right. 5, 4. I think I got the right stuff. Let me make sure. All right, everybody. All
Ooh.
right, we got it. We are live. We are officially live. So I apologize for any technical difficulties that happen here today, guys. This is my first live event on the LinkedIn Live. So welcome. I'm your host, Will McGee. And if you guys don't know me, I'm the founder of Recruiting with Dynamite. Recruiting with Dynamite is on a mission to provide the most impactful resources to recruiting agency owners and lifestyle recruiters so they can thrive in any market. So, if you want to learn more about how exactly we do that, please go and join the Recruiting with Dynamite newsletter by signing up through our website, recruitingwithdynamite.com. We also have a community called the Boom Lab. We have a little bit of a wait list right now on that, but I'm excited to have this be a part of what we do, right? So let's get right into it, right? So we've got some really great a really great guest today. Will Allred, the founder of Lavender. He is kind of like a little bit of a man crush for me. I'm not going to even lie. Like, the guy has just put out so much great content when it comes to helping people build up their sales, their cold email funnels, and essentially like showing people how to actually write better cold emails that convert. Now, Will has this really unique perspective because not only does he own Lavender, which is the platform that helps salespeople build and craft better messages with AI, but he also has these millions of data points that come from his unique perspective, right? And that's really awesome. But not only that, he gets thousands of recruiters who message him a day with hundreds and hundreds of messages. And so he has this really unique perspective, not only as an email creator or like a email guru or mastermind, but he also comes with this perspective of being the end recipient of said emails from you guys. So I'm excited to get Will in here. It's been a long journey, Will. Thanks again for being a part of this. And this is going to be really value packed. So let's just get into it. How are you doing today, Will?
I'm good. I'm calling in from gray, dreary Austin today. But excited to dig in. Yeah, it's as well as you mentioned, founder over at Lavender. I love talking about the data points when it comes to what makes for great email. But as you mentioned, like, I get a lot myself, and so being able to sort of speak to that, reference that as well, is also kind of key in helping folks kind of understand how it's going to be received. Gives a little more context.
Yeah, man. I mean, you just put out so much content when it comes to this. Your whole team does. And if you guys haven't followed Will or, Mike Wander or Will Aiken, like, they just create such amazing content. And we got to throw out Jen. Jen is just such an amazing asset to you guys. She's one of my favorite people. She just constantly brings up. She's so brilliant, right? So definitely subscribe to them. If you haven't, you're missing out on something special. But just as a brief introduction, right? Like, Lavender's been built. It's been around for quite some time. I was one of the early adopters of Lavender, and I think when it first came out, it was like, okay, like, get to know your prospect and then what's going to resonate with them. That was the original, and it's evolved in such a beautiful way. So, could you tell me a little bit about like Lavender's achievements and like what you're building right now?
Yeah. At the end of the day, we've set off on this mission that we want, you, regardless of the situation, regardless of who you're talking to know what to say and how to say it. And that requires, a mass amount of data, requires, some pretty cool AI things that we've been building on. But we want to make sure that you show up and put your best foot forward in any sort of moment. I remember like one of our first like sales documents that we were putting together to build out like how we think about portraying what we do, was like, we don't sell software, we sell confidence. Because like there's so much uncertainty and doubt when someone's hitting send. And so we just want to like put that person in a place of ease.
I think that's like such a cool way of putting it too, because it's like this emotional connection to
Yeah.
what you guys are building, right? And I will say, like, truthfully, that's exactly what it feels like as a user of Lavender. I'm like, it's one of my core platforms to put into some of my clients that I work with on the recruiting level, right? And just building into this into their stack, if you will, this really great confidence builder. Because when you go through it, you kind of like, when you first start, you don't even really know what you're doing at first. Like, you're kind of like, am I doing this right? Like, but all of a sudden you
Yeah.
get this like 80% score and it's all yellow. You freak out and you're like, what? Like, what? I thought this was the best message I ever wrote. But
90s the
then,
best, man.
and it really just like gut checks you. It's like, hey, is this actually a good message to send based on what people are actually opening and replying to today? So, what were you doing
The math
before
behind
Lavender?
that, by the way,
But
is
yeah,
like going from a B to an A. It's 2 times the amount of replies.
that's
Um,
insane. That's a crazy number, right? So that's 100% difference in what you're when you're doing right there. That's amazing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all relative, right? But the key thing is like we've designed the system to really pull out the best of the best of what's going on within your inbox.
So what were you doing before Lavender? Like, what kind of got you to this point and made you even kind of create this platform for salespeople?
Yeah. So Lavender's the byproduct of a pivot. We were building a marketing technology product before that. Before that was like consulting. But yeah, I met my co-founder at a hackathon. He was building a marketing tech product focused on customer segmentation. You think about how marketers go about like running segmentations, its behaviors, its demographics. You get these like high level persona with a lot of fluff. Um, and personality science is pretty common in like the world of sales. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this person's introverted versus extroverted. Like, what's their disc profile?
Yeah.
Sellers love this stuff. We were applying a lot of that same psychographic segmentation, but to marketing. So like we're working with brands like Yamaha, Gravity Blankets, a lot of co-working spaces. But in that we were really focused around like mass segmentation. And one of the challenges we were seeing in that was creating content that matched these psychographics, right? If I'm talking to a
Mm-hmm.
24-year-old paid media specialist who's never taken a psychology class before,
Yeah.
and I'm like, hey, you have to write this ad for an introvert. They're like, what? Right? They're like, where's the discount? So like the yeah, the challenge there is like we started to build some content tools focused around helping um, those folks design and create better content. COVID came about, didn't necessarily do great things for what we were working on.
Yeah.
And so we had some hard choices to make. We saw some key trends of folks going remote, a lot of online communication happening over email. And so we leaned heavily into this like repositioning of our technology.
Man, that's crazy. Like, because what it was is what I actually used to coach on with some of my recruiting clients and some of the agency owners that we worked with was, hey, like, don't just send one message that's specifically to like an analytical profile.
Yeah.
You might want to change up the personality piece on the different messages, so that way you have a variety of messages that might resonate. You don't know what's going to resonate and what's going to hit this particular profile. And Lavender kind of came in and said, hey, like, we can kind of identify that, and which is pretty neat in its on its own. And
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're basing that off of like content that they were writing, or how they might have interacted with like a post or an email that you had, right? Is that kind of where the data set would come from?
Being able to do like psychographic segmentation.
Yeah.
Just digital footprint data.
Yeah.
I think the thing to think about in that is like, taking this and applying it much more towards a recruiter, right? Because you
Yeah.
mentioned like, oh, the analytical profile, like, oh, okay, we're hiring an engineer, right? That's immediately where everyone's head thinks is biased to
Yep.
go. And the reality of the situation, like
It's not the
we
case.
ran psychographic testing inside our own company, right? Most of our engineers are extroverted.
Interesting.
So Like they don't fall under that like hyper analytical categorization. They're very open minded. They're happy to have like conversations with strangers, and that's like, they also, they come to all of our events, and I say they, like it's so inhuman. These wonderful people that I get to work with who
Yeah.
build amazing things, and like they're thrilled and they're happy to be interacting and engaging with our users and customers. And so this concept that a top engineer is this like analytical person in their basement is just like such a misnomer.
I completely agree with you. As a person who used to like basically recruit engineers, that was exactly the case. Like I actually ended up finding that there's so many variety of people, and you can't just put them all in a box. And
Yeah.
but at the same time, you do kind of come at it with a perspective of like what might be the things that people are dealing with, and actually talk to those pains. And that's something that we coach on all the time. Is like if you ever read any of our newsletters or any of the content we post, it's not just coming at people and talking to them as if they're on the psychographic level, but we have what have you ever heard of the term exographic data, where you're like kind of understanding like how they make the decisions of or to complete their mission, right? Like what are the things that typically happen, and you can create these profiles. And this is like a marketing technique I think most recruiters don't have, and or haven't been taught, I should say. And it's
Yeah.
in doing that, you can actually like come at them with a little bit more context, talk to the actual pain, and bring it all together through an email. And I think that kind of leads us into this like big part, which is,
Yeah.
I think everybody wonders, is everybody saying that email's dead, especially now with everything that's going on. Google's like cracking down. Is email
Oh,
dead? Is
yeah.
email dead, Will?
No, of course not. It's, spam is dying.
Yeah.
Lazy tendencies are getting sort of pushed out, right? Like long ago, like the days of sending these like mass automated messages, like, and this stuff's been going on, right? It's just people are now finally getting put on notice officially,
Yeah.
as opposed to the borderline like shadow banning that's been happening. It's like, hey, why did Google shut down my account? Well, maybe you shouldn't have sent like 5 trillion emails to every single person being like, hey, would you like to buy my software? So the I think the reality of it is like, of course they have to crack down, right? Like,
Yeah.
of course there's gonna be consequences to swiping your credit card and never paying it back. The the reality for recruiters though is like I feel like the majority of recruiting conversations these days is happening on LinkedIn. Is that
Yeah.
is that fair?
I think it just depends on where your market is, and I think this is a big part, big conversation starter too. Is like
Yeah.
there's a difference between like email and even LinkedIn conversations. I think Lavender helps out in both of those cases, but at the end of the day, uh, it is all about where your prospect is,
Yeah.
and a lot of the people that are probably joining right now are on the sales perspective or on the client perspective. That's one of the
Yeah.
big pains that I hear about every day right now is, oh, I can't get clients. So I want to really tilt into the client perspective, and that's the big thing is
Yeah.
that you need to be on the platforms that your clients are. If they're on LinkedIn, be in LinkedIn. If they go to conferences and they're not very digital, go to conferences. Like you need to be there, but having this like
That's a
kind
good
of
point.
really
Yeah.
good messaging point piece to it, and understanding how that interaction happens is a big factor. So
Yeah. Well, I think there's some key things to like dissect in that, right? One is your targeting, and understanding. If we're going to be talking about like software companies that are going through VC rounds, like you need to have a fundamental understanding of like,
exactly.
Okay, they raised a round at this point. They're probably going through a hiring sprint. They've probably already done their planning for said hiring sprint. So
Yeah.
like they've thought about it. They might be getting recommendations for recruiters from their VC firm. That's something to also consider. Like
Yep.
there's like a path and a cycle, and like you can also look at the objective data of who's being added on LinkedIn, and you can like sort of map out how that looks over like a 2-year time horizon, right?
That's it.
Until the next round, right? Because that's sort of how companies tend to flow in this. So like if you're reaching out to us, like we'd be like right in between. And so the question is like, are they not? And like that changes the context in which how you're going to show up and how you're going to sell recruiting services to a company like that, right? So like, if you're reaching out to a company like ours, you would know that we are like in this in between state. So it's like iffy if that's a priority. but then you'd like go and you dig in, look at like, our like, LinkedIn page, you look at like who's on the team, who's not on the team, and you like,
Yep.
you might like be able to start making a hypothesis like, oh, there's not a ton of salespeople in the
There you
org. That's probably a focus, right?
go.
And then you can start to like deduce and be like, hey, Will, um, recognize it's over a year since your funding round. I wouldn't be shocked if you've already got a recruiter on staff, but couldn't help but observe that a year post funding, you've only got X number of salespeople. Is this something you're looking to change? Right. And then like the signature line is going to have the billboards as I'm a recruiter. Right. And like, I'm going to be like, well, one, that's a very thoughtful, like you get it kind of note. And then two, like I'm going to know you're a recruiter from like the signature line. And I can tell you very quickly, it's a yes or no question, whether or not this is something I'm recruiting for. And then you think about like, okay, maybe I don't respond because I'm busy, right? Please don't follow up with, hey, I know you're busy. But it's like the problem is like, yes, it's true. But the problem is it gives me an excuse to not read your email. And like, I'm no different than any other person that you're reaching out to, and that I'm just looking for excuses to not have to do things or to, skimp out. And so like those like fluffy filler pages, I don't have to open your email. I don't have to like think about it. I can just be like, cool, yeah, you're right, I am busy. Bloop, delete. The average amount of time, by the way, somebody's gonna be reading that thing is 3 to maybe 9 seconds if you're lucky. Most get deleted around the 3-second mark. It's this like, what is this? Got it. Recruiting, selling me. Don't need it, right?
Don't need it. And it's this immediate response that I think like people don't realize is that hey, like as a decision maker, you're probably I was actually right after our Apollo event that we actually saw each other at, was I was on my way back home and I sat next to a decision maker for a life sciences company who's was pitching Stanford, and we were talking about kind of the the nuances of recruiters coming at him, and he's like, literally, if I get a mass message or the same message that you probably send everybody else, which I will know because it will have unsubscribe, I have it as a filter that says if it says unsubscribe on there, it's going in the mail and into the trash. I just don't open it, and we don't really use recruiters that aren't in our space or that don't know what we're doing and haven't come to me in a really thoughtful way. So you have to come.
Well, just adding on to that, Will, think about a recruiter that's reaching out to you that way, and then you're thinking about how they're going to reach out to candidates that way.
Exactly.
Like, who am I going to get as far as like candidates from that individual if they can't even thoughtfully reach out to me to like understand me, business, etc. Like, hiring is the most important decision that I'm going to like make on a day-to-day basis, right? These are the people I have to work with, and these are the people that are going to take things that I'm like, these are like my babies, and then like, these are the things I'm gonna like go and trust to somebody, right? Like, they better be good, and so you better be thoughtful in going and finding them, right?
So I gotta ask you, as a decision maker, and you're getting these emails from recruiters. There's what I've noticed is that recruiters will lean on one of three ways. They'll lean on like what we call an MPC, a most placeable candidate. So it's specking out one candidate. Hey, I've got this great candidate for you. Do you want to take a look at it? I
already know what you're talking about. Yeah, I've got
that. So there's that, and then there's the solution, right? Hey, like we've got this amazing solution that's gonna like take the time off of your plate and like really be the next best thing in your recruiting industry and your recruiting process. And then there's the company. We've been in business for 50 years. We established ourselves as the recruiting might in technical recruiting.
All three of those, you were talking about product. You are not talking about me or my problems. And that's like the core thing that like we have to get away from, is this addiction to talking about ourselves. Even if we're talking about a candidate, because like at the end of the day, like Stanford grad, he's built like he actually built OpenAI before OpenAI existed. Like, just like hyping this person up, and I'm like, damn, like you're a great hype person, but like that's one candidate. It's like, you sit there and you look at it. Like, I've definitely done those, and like the problem with those emails in particular is they typically get forwarded. And I think that like open data probably like reinforces the behavior. But I've never hired any of those people. Like the data speaks for itself. Like it doesn't lead to the outcome. Like it might like generate the noise, but it doesn't always lead to the conversion. Now,
Yeah.
some recruiter's probably sitting there watching this and being like, well, it's worked for me before, in which case, kudos.
Keep going.
My experience, I will happily separate the subjective from the objective. The objective truth is when you come across as informative in a cold email, it performs worse. Any tinge of an informative tone, and you're going to reduce your chance of getting a response by about 26%. And so what that means for you is whenever it comes across like you're talking at someone versus trying to talk with them, talking about your stuff, talking about your company, telling them about a candidate, right? You're hurting your chances. And so the reverse of that is to try to talk with them, try to have a conversation with them. And one of the easiest ways to start to do that is flipping your tonality to a more tentative stance, being a little bit unsure. And you can always be confident in yourself and what you provide. But the reality is like this person lives in their day-to-day job every single day. So like you're never going to know more about it than them. And they also like they live their experience, right? And so you have to show up and be like, hey, I don't know what your strategy or priority is, right? Unless like they've written it out online, been like, this is my hiring strategy, which I guess would technically be a job board to a degree, but like there's always nuance behind the nuance. And so approaching it with like hands up and recognizing you don't know what you like don't know is a really effective way to engage with someone, right? So it's like, if I'm reaching out to somebody about like writing cold emails, like in my example before, right? Like you might be crushing it with the example of like you just hand over the candidate and like you get your percentage and it works really well. You might not be, and like that like might phrasing that I'm using right there, that's why it's an engaging conversation. I'm not telling you, right? Because that's immediately going to be like, well, it worked for me. And I'm like, great. That's awesome. Congrats.
And there's always anecdotal evidence, right? Like at the end of the day, it could have worked for you, but the question that it becomes is like, are you preparing for what's coming and what's the future? What's the future hold? And you said it perfectly, right? Like some people might have had success. I had success with that. I'm not going to even lie. Like we did that 100% when I was at Cybercoders. We did that 100% when I was at Tima. And it worked because at that time it worked. It was like fairly new, especially with like sequence building and like following up and all this like automated stuff. But now the market's shifted. And I think one of the big differences is, the consumer, your client, and the end receiver is more educated than they ever have been. And they're getting more emails than they ever have been because of things like AI. And so I always find it funny when people say AI is going to kill everything. And it's like, AI is actually killing it in the worst way possible. Like it's actually destroying people's inboxes. And so people are more likely to not respond, not more likely to respond because you have some AI tool.
This is my issue with the whole concept of AI is going to take over and you won't need a person doing the outbound is you have to recognize the imperfections of the data layer. Exactly. Like an AI can't just like run with. You have to keep a human in the loop because there's always going to be context that just doesn't get pulled in.
So I want to open it up to the questions and stuff. So please, if you have any questions for Will right now, please add them into the comments. I'll try and get to them and ensure that we answer some of them. But in the meantime, I have a segment we call Blast or Pass. Are you ready to do this? Well, we talked about it a little bit.
Wait, Blast or Pass? Like Blast is Pass. Good, right?
Blast is good. Blast is the good one. Pass is the bad one. Like we're not.
Am I showing my age right now? Or I'm just like Blast. What does that mean?
Oh man, that's funny. So I'm gonna screen share. We're gonna go right into it. Let's go to window. Let's see. Drum roll. I gotta, pull up all the fun stuff really quick. Hold on. Give me a second. There we go. Power. Nope. technical difficulties, like especially doing this alone. I have my wife being the producer of all of this stuff, so it's like just trying to get this right. Here we go. PowerPoint. Let's go. Share. All right. Can you see my PowerPoint? Are you there still? Did I lose you?
I'm still here. I can't see your PowerPoint though.
And that's not coming up. It's because it's not
like,
coming
you're
up.
here, but the PowerPoint's not there.
All right. Let's see. Window. Let's open this up. And there we go. This should work now. Let's do it.
Oh,
Let's go. Share. Technical difficulties are fun. Oh, come on. No.
Are you doing screen share?
I'm trying to.
It's coming.
It's coming.
No.
Okay, cool.
No, it didn't.
No.
I'm sorry. Okay,
okay, there we go.
I was clicking the share button and then it started to load the doc, but it didn't.
Yeah, it's giving me some problems here. Maybe I'll just read it to you then, because it's not working.
Little read along. Let's do it.
All right, subject line: accounting manager in Boston. All right, hey Will, I saw your accounting manager role. I thought to reach out. I'm working with a candidate with the following experience: 10 years of accounting experience, has a CPA, and they've got great communication. They graduated from UCLA. Would you like to set up a call? We blasting or passing that?
I like it. It's short. Account manager in Boston. Man, that's interesting. Saw the role, thought to reach out. This folks just went on like a whole rampage about like don't go and do like sell the candidate stuff, but like it's really short. It's probably getting a response. So like I'm gonna give it like blast in the sense
that blast. All right, cool.
Yeah, just in the sense of like I'm looking at the data behind it, and I'm like, yeah, like the way they structured those like quick early sentences to be like very choppy, so the person can like understand it faster. They didn't like provide the full resume, right? It's just like, hey, this person's done the job for 10 years, and oh, here we go. I can see it.
Yeah. All right.
Let's go. All right. Show me that first one.
There it is.
Ooh, the one thing I hate though is the bullet points. I absolutely want to just like throw that out the window. I'd probably do. You know what? If I got this email, I'd pass. Now that I'm seeing it visually, the visual like setup of it is a total pass. Damn, that sucks. I wanted to like this one. Nice. So like, here's how I'd adjust that. Do you want to go back? Yeah. So, hey, John, I literally cut the I statement, just saying, saw your open accounting manager role, period. Thought to reach out, period. Check out this candidate, colon. See how I'm just like making it shorter? It doesn't have to be this wordsmithing like activity. It's just like, truncate, make it shorter. And I would lead with like, I would try to like visualize this. I don't know, but I don't think the soft skills really matter. I would just be like, I would do has their CPA, graduated from UCLA, 10 years of accounting experience. Yeah. And then, maybe include like the industry. So there's like some like tie-in. And if it's the same industry, be like, don't say anything more. If it's a different industry, be like, recognize it's a different industry, but I think you'll find from talking to them, there's a lot of commonalities. What do you think? I wouldn't say, could we set up a call? That's a big ask.
It's exactly it. It's too much time. One of the things that we coach on is, instead of like focusing on, say, on all these points, right? I like to, what I call it is a solution bridge. Like your client at the end of the day is at one particular point. They're, trying to get to a particular goal at the end of the day. Exactly what we talked about. If you're looking at companies with funding at certain series or whatever it might be, and they don't have a sales team, or, they might only have one CFO and no accounting team, they know that there's a problem there's likely a case, but you
Yeah.
want to come at it in a curious way. And instead of spewing out 10 years of accounting experience, like that doesn't matter to them as much as saying like, hey, this person's already been where you are,
Yeah.
and they've helped transition all the way to this solution. Like
Yeah.
they created a bridge. They can create a bridge for you from getting from this shitty before state to this great, after state, if you will,
Yeah.
from the marketing perspective. So,
Totally. Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about is how you could maybe restructure this a little bit. So the ask is at the bottom on this. You could actually put the ask at the top, and use the observation as the ask, and just say, "Hey, John, have you filled that open accounting manager role yet? Working with a candidate and thought I'd share. Check it out." And that can be another way to like reposition that. But I love your point on like, stage specific experience, industry specific experience. Like those things are all really critical when trying to make a choice. Right? It's like somebody who's coming in from massive enterprise organization and they've sold with a giant team supporting them. Like
exactly, not going to be relevant for your startup.
At a Series A startup.
I just had this call with with one of our Boom Lab members. His name's Justin Wade. Shout out to Justin. He's a fantastic recruiter. He's really like developed like this really great talent acquisition strategy and fractional like kind of recruiting product or service, right? And he gets hit up every day when it comes to recruiting strategies from like some of these larger organizations and even smaller ones trying to get the leg up, especially for 2024. As no one knows what's going to happen. So they're like, I need to, lock in these rates. Right. And one of the things that he brought up is that we at one point were just looking at meta candidates and like these FANG candidates. And if you had those types of candidates in the past, like generally speaking, you could just send them everywhere. You could really like, be the big dog in the room and, showcase that you got all these great candidates. But now with the startups and where like companies are going, like they're really starting to see like those types of candidates maybe siloed. It's become an upsell. So even it's become an upsell specifically for these like small to mid-sized companies, and it doesn't work for them anymore. So to your point, like being siloed or having all these resources, it's not going to showcase like what this candidate's been able to do. All right, so
I read through this email, by the way. Absolute blast. This is amazing. The only adjustment I would make is I would cut the bottom question. Asking more than one question reduces your chance of getting a response by 20 some odd percent. Can't remember the exact number off the top of my head right now. So like that's an easy one because you're asking too much, which is
it got a 97%, man.
And of course it did. It's a good email.
Thanks, man. I wrote this. Like I was like, hey, look, like wanted to showcase, So yeah, no, blast this. Thank you. And this is not on stage, guys. Like he's genuinely seeing this for the first time. This is actually in my course. I actually talk about this.
I was like, I had no idea. I was like, oh, there's this I'm more like, I was like shitting on the second question, then I'm looking at 97, like, oh damn. The product knows better than I do, just so you know.
Oh, okay. So I messed up on this one. I'm gonna actually pull up my course real quick because the third one was a follow-up. And the follow-up was the key there. So
listen, I'm all about that follow-up. So
that follow-up, man. And so one of the things that we teach is like, hey, don't just follow up.
Look at this hundo.
I was like, yo, I've never gotten 100%. So
same, dude.
I've never gotten it. So here's the follow-up, right? So follow-up. Hey, John, could Acme app manage a 30% increase in customers? All right. So Web3 product, the Web3 product that spiked ABC's 2020 demand was the brainchild of this PM below. Best part, she was ready. She was ready for launch 3 weeks early. Would you like to see her resume? And I think like the reason why this works so well, and the reason why I love this email, I'll leave it to you. Why do you love it? I'm not going to even give you my perspective. What do you think about it?
I mean, I love because it's 100, but the only thing I might tweak is the context you're leading in. I might lead that could Acme app manage blah blah blah. I might use it as like a PS, and be like, "Hey John, Yeah. Following up, given, XYZ person was asking, right? Back to the example earlier. So like one, it shows proactivity, but it also like hits on that like little psychology factor of like, if you're emailing me and you're like, dude, I don't know. Let's say John was reaching out to me, right? Through you. And you're like, hey, John is asking about you, right? It's going to catch my eye. I'm going to be like, all right, what is that? And I'm most likely going to look, right? And then I'm going to be like, oh, wow. Like I'm seeing email 1, I'm seeing email 2 in thread. I'm seeing like all these like really positive traits of like proactivity. I'm seeing these positive traits of like past success and like, like objective data points. I actually posted a tweet the other day of like, people like to say sales is not a numbers game, but if I'm looking at 2 resumes and one has numbers and one doesn't,
One doesn't exactly.
I can tell you the numbers is getting the resume,
Yeah.
the interview.
And I think that's a big part too, because like what you can showcase in the numbers, we talk about this in the course, is that, and it's free, by the way. If anybody wants to join it, let me know. You can get on the wait list. I'll add you in. But the course basically says there's in marketing to businesses, there's really 3 objectives that are going to spark people's interest and quantitative numbers. It's cost, revenue, and market share. Every business in the entire world is trying to reduce costs, they're trying to increase revenue, and they're trying to capture more market share. If they're not doing one of those 3 things, they're probably not going to be in business for very long. And so that's on the top of every VP or executive's mind. And so like if you can correlate a candidate's experience, if you're going to do MPC marketing, you're going to correlate that candidate's experience to one of those 3 things. And that's what we try to do here with this message, is right. Looking at this candidate's experience, they were able to increase market share. They were able to reduce cost through the risk that was reduced, or having a HIPAA compliant app that's not going to have them go back and forth. So I think that's a big part of what we try and do here. But thanks for playing Blast or Pass.
Blast or pass, dude. This is great.
Let's get right into it. So it looks like we have some questions before we get things going. So let's go. So grade an email. So we have a friend. So we got somebody who wants to grade an email. Okay, let's see.
I'm gonna like. Do you want me to grade it personally?
Yeah. Download the app, Demian.
I'm gonna give this a 14 for not downloading the app. It's free.
It's free, guys. It's free.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
and if you want the premium stuff, guys, it's such an amazing application because the suggestive AI that will go in and say, hey, this is a long sentence, here's a sentence to improve it. You're not gonna, like, this is where we were talking about AI being like not the killer of email, right? It can help you. So I think Lavender's just done such a fantastic point on actually creating a product that does utilize AI in a much more effective way than just trying to blast everybody and be lazy.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to you.
Yeah.
Will.
I'm reading the email. Sorry, I wasn't actually listening. It's like, okay. So there does seem to be like a little bit of like a disjoint. Like I appreciate the research. And it's like, I'm thinking through like hey, I saw the hiring going on for engineers, particularly, local to, I don't want to say Boston. But also noticed your focus on global team building. I guess like what I miss in that is like some context, which makes it kind of hard to evaluate. But like, then there's sort of like a cookie cutter, like, are they leaning on job boards? Like that's where I struggle of like, it's like, hey, saw the hiring going on for engineers, local to, I'm in Austin, so like Austin. With the focus on global team building, I wouldn't be surprised if you're leaning on your job board to bring in candidates. we can
And you see how
help.
there's that curious tone, Demian. Like if you're trying to figure that out, like he's bringing in a curious perspective. He's not stating the facts, right?
Yeah. When it's just like the transition's a little choppy. That's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm getting at here, right? Because like usually we see customers lean on job boards. Like what I'm missing in that is like what does global team building, what does engineers in an area, like what does that have to do with job boards? Is it their job board, your job board? The context is like, yeah, I haven't seen them. I'm making this up, right? But like, yeah, and Demian's point here is like, yeah, I haven't seen them posting on third party job boards. So like they must be relying on first party, right? You can say that like flat out, like, with the focus on global team building, I see it. It seems to me that you're leaning heavily on only your job board as opposed to local job boards. Um, we help medical device leaders with these kinds of things so they can find engineers faster, right?
I mean, you just did that off the cuff, and I'm impressed. I try and do this with my clients on the cuff, and I'm like, you got to give me 10, 20 minutes, man. It's just, but what I want you to see, everybody, is that it is an exercise, right? When you train your brain a little bit, I mean, Will doesn't even have any experience in like he's not a recruiter, right? He's not going after our clients in that particular way. He doesn't have experience in medical devices. He's just coming up with like, he's taking his time to figure it out, but he's able to do it faster than I think 90% of recruiters because he's got a framework. And Lavender has tons of frameworks. There's 16. I think you guys have 16 frameworks that you guys created. It's all
and we're always publishing more, but the thought of framework, by the way, is really simple. It's just give me the underpinning logic that makes up this email. And so you can look at any email and really start to break down that logic and be like, okay, how does this flow? Right? And like, does A connect to B? Does B connect to C?
And does it keep people going down the rabbit hole, if you will?
Right.
So we got one more question. So it's actually, there's two questions here that kind of have the same.
Do I listen to voicemails? Wait, can I pull this up real quick?
Yeah. Do you listen to voicemails and when people follow up with you, like how do you feel about that?
If you can't see on my little phone here, the notification is like 127. They're all voicemails.
There you go.
Sorry, I'm bad with that.
I think any founder or executive is going to be bad at voicemails. Like just not really.
I wish I was better. Do I pick up phone calls? Typically from an unknown number, and then like you get into the argument of like, well, do you just like text them? Like, there's a bit of like a privacy feel with that, where I'm like, hey,
it's icky, right?
That's like where my wife communicates with me. Like, let's leave the separation of church and state here. Like I think the follow ups on LinkedIn, email, like those can be really effective. If you're doing that like deep dive research and like thoughtfulness behind the message, you're going to have enough success. I think obsessing over like a single prospect is a sign that you're probably not doing enough prospecting.
Boom.
And just like, if you're ever like thinking to yourself like, I'm like really bugged I didn't get a response, like, because that was just like really thoughtful, just go send some more cold emails. I can't help but like promise you, like there's somebody out there that needs what it is that you're providing. It's just not be that person at that given time. So like, while you can set yourself up for the best odds of success, you can map out the best logic possible. You can do the best research possible. It's a two-sided coin, right? So like your results equal the number of emails that you send or calls you make or LinkedIn DMs you're sending, or I think they call them IMs, whatever. The number of those multiplied by the conversion rate of those activities, right? So like it's just math. That's
why I say recruiting and sales is not a numbers game. It's a math game. It is 100% a math game. It's just really figuring out what the numbers represent, which is a module in our course, guys. Metric math. Get to it, guys.
The question about the sequence.
Yeah,
Like
there's a
what
sequence
is
question on the question is for what sequence have you had the most success with? For example, step one, automated email. Ooh.
Ooh. If you weren't gonna do it, I was. Like, I love that you just like beat me to it.
Ooh. All right, automated email. Day 2, call. Day 3, LinkedIn connection. Day 4, voicemail. So
I'm a fan of like experimenting these things and like testing, moving them around, because like it depends week to week, like what you'll have success with as a channel. I mean, I do love that like all of them are included, right? One of the things that I've started to come around on is call first. Because if that's their preferred method of communication, they pick up the phone and you've done your research and you show up and you're like, well, I saw this thing on your website. Like, you're trying to fill this role. Like, I've got a candidate. Like, do you want me to like give you a quick download of who they are? And like, recognize you might have already filled the role and feel free to hang up if so. Right.
Yep.
Like if somebody called me and said that and I answered, I'd be like, all right, I'm listening. Right. Yep. And then like tell me about the candidate, be like, yeah, and then I might ask questions. But like that latency response rate, like you just had way more success than you would have if you had added all those other steps and then like picked up the phone and had that conversation. So you just saved yourself a boatload of time so that you can go send more emails later, right? So like starting with the call, starting with the LinkedIn connection request, and then moving into the manual email where you do your research and you come in thoughtfully and you try to strike up a conversation. There's folks out there that will like, there's arguments to be had around like, the connection. Do you send it with a note versus a no note kind of thing? I'm a no note kind of person. That's just based off my own personal experience. Anytime I get a note, it typically leads to a spammy pitch immediately after. And so like my brain just starts to categorize those two things together. Yep. But that said, like if the connection note was like, hey, left you a quick voicemail. You're hired. Like if you're still hiring for X, I've got a great candidate. Yeah. So like I know exactly why you're reaching out to me. Yeah, I'll either accept the connection, which is probably a really strong intent signal, or I won't accept it, which is also a really strong non-intent signal.
Well, I know you've got your press for time. I only wanted 45 minutes of your time. Everybody, thank you so much for joining, and Will, thank you for being here. You've been such a gracious guest and giving us your knowledge and your perspective on things. If you guys,
the last question from Christina, I do want to call out one of the most effective things I've done in messaging when I'm reaching out to folks on the recruiting side, and it comes back to this tentative tonality thing, is like, hey, I recognize you're probably not even looking for a role right now.
Yep.
So many recruiters just like blast the opportunity and like people are just like numb to it. Same thing on the buyer side, right? The recognizing the situation that they're in, recognizing you're coming out of the blue and like, just throwing a job opportunity at them, like, have some respect for that. It actually goes a long way, and like trying to generate conversation, not just trying to drive some conversion.
That's the big part. I think that just to kind of double down on that. I know you got time. I don't want to press too much of your time, right? So that's why I'm always just very conscious of like the time that we have with you.
Oh, you're good. I blocked till the end of the hour, so I'm happy to just
okay. So I won't do my exit right away. But one of the big things I will say is, one of the factors that we saw for the coaching that we do for our clients is that you need to have, this conversation builder is a big part what you're saying. And yeah, you can come out people with an opportunity, but don't just like walk away from a client or a candidate because they didn't respond to your initial email, or they didn't, or put them into the sequence of constantly sending them a job or even a new candidate every single email. Like, find ways to add value. And someone actually brought this up to me, is like, instead of thinking of it in value, because I think people just convolute that word, find ways to be useful. So I think it makes it easier to think about it in that term. So like, what is happening right now with your candidate, regardless of if they're looking for a job or not. What is happening with your client right now, or your prospect that's happening right now, regardless of if they're trying to hire or not? What objectives can you be useful with them for, right? So, and it does require a bit more research and knowledge and understanding of your market. That's why, like, I do believe that niching in a lot of ways can, mess up a recruiter's desk, because if you overly niche and you overly identify with a very specific problem and that problem goes away, you're screwed, right? So you need to learn how to like figure out how to like move and shake in the space. And I think that's the point, right? So figure out the problem though, and really get good at understanding all the problems that are facing your prospects on every level, on both sides of that coin. So that way you can be more useful, and you're not just flooding their inbox with a bunch of sequences.
Yeah. The other thing to think about too is like you're doing candidate outreach, right? Which is, I think about some of the best recruiters I've ever worked with, best recruiters I've ever gotten to know, is like they've got a bench of talent that they can go call on. Always, right? And so you think about like that candidate outreach, and it's like, you might want to be known for, I've always got the coolest, hottest jobs, but like in reality, that's not what they're going to remember. That's not like what ties back to memory. That's way too logical. What ties back is like their experience and their feelings towards you as an individual. Like, does this person have my back? Are they friendly? Do they really want to get to know me and what I'm trying to accomplish? And so that personalization matters, that thoughtfulness matters, in how you show up for conversation, right? If you're just trying to drive a conversion for a client, like they're going to pick up on that, and it's not going to like create the relationship and the bond that you're looking for. Meanwhile, if you show up and you're looking to like have a conversation with them, like obviously you set the stage and some context for like, why you're reaching out to them, of course, but like, showcasing that you've done some homework on that candidate, showcasing that you understand like the current scenario that they're in, understanding like, that it might not be a good fit, but like, you just want to like dig a little bit deeper with them to see if it is, right? Like those are the kinds of things that, that tentative tonality, man, it just, it opens people up for dialogue versus
and you're just having conversation. It just be human. Is at the end of the day, it's like everything's going automated, everything's going AI. Be more human. Like it's just like be normal. No one be normal. Don't be a weirdo, right? And I love this example that I kind of came across, is like, it doesn't matter how much value you're going to bring. If you're coming at people in this like non-human way, no one's going to want it. And like, and the example that I have is like, let's say you're in New York, you're in the ATL. So let's say you're in Atlanta, like you're at a coffee shop, somebody runs up to you, Will, and is like, hey, Will, I got these Rolexes. Do you want to take a look at them? Like, what's your immediate response? And it doesn't matter if they're real Rolexes, mind you, they're real Rolexes.
Oh, they're probably free, right? I'd be like, get away from here, you weirdo.
Like, so no matter how much value you think you're bringing to the table, if you come at people like just too aggressively, like, and you're not human, like the first thing that you say to somebody when you connect with them is, do you want to take a look at this candidate? Or, hey, do you want to look at this job? Like, it's just not going to build a relationship. Be human. Instead, like, have a conversation. Hey, man, like same person. Hey, dude, your shoes look dope. Or, hey, I see that piece that you got. It looks really good on you, man. Like, where'd you get it? Right. Yeah. And it's like just having a decent human to human conversation will, like, that's the long game, and it takes some time. So slow down. Don't try and like, send thousands of messages to everyone a day. Send 5 to 10 to your key prospects a day, and just like get really good at just starting conversations and being a normal human being. So
yeah, that's I feel like that's a good like closing. Be normal.
Be normal, guys. Well, if you guys want to download Lavender, it's free, so you can get it on your on your Google extension. It will help you just kind of identify what your score is. You're trying to get a 90 or above, okay? That's the goal. And if you want to connect with Will, he's got some freaking amazing LinkedIn content, and he's giving away free value all the time. He's got, what is it, Lavenderland? That's the
yeah, we have a blog, we've got Lavenderland, we've got some fun, entertaining video content. You name it, you can dive in. So We try to offer as
Crazy
many
content
resources as
game.
possible.
Yeah, they're just killing it on the content game. So if you want free resources, it's all there, guys. So check it out, and definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, recruitingwithdynamite.com if you want to join our newsletter. But for the rest of the day and the rest of the week, have a good one, and God bless everybody. Talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Will.
Hey, dude.